theory, about a third of your life has been spent in a world you can't control. It's this mysterious landscape that visits you every single night, only to completely vanish the second you wake up.
But what happens when that's not the case anymore? What happens when you stop being a passive audience and you start directing the show? What if you could actually step inside the control room of your own mind and start rewriting the script? Well, today, we're unlocking the science of dream control, how it works, and what it could mean for the future of consciousness itself.
Okay, so let's get into it. For the longest time, the only real data we had on dreams were, the stories people told when they woke up. It's kind of like trying to study a distant planet using nothing but ancient myths. This entire state of consciousness was a frontier we could only look at from afar but never really enter or interact with. That wall between waking and dreaming, it seemed absolutely solid. But now, scientists have found a door.
And the very first step to controlling a dream is, believe it or not, both simple and incredibly profound. You just have to realize you're in one. You have to wake up without actually waking up.
This is what we call lucid dreaming. And it's not just a super vivid dream. It's a unique state where you are consciously aware of the fact that you are dreaming while you are still completely in the dream. For just a moment, your waking self and your dreaming self, they become one. So what's actually going on inside our heads when this happens? Well, during normal REM sleep, the frontal areas of your brain, the part responsible for logic, for self-awareness, they're mostly offline. But in a lucid dream, bam, they spark back to life. It creates this true hybrid state, a neurological bridge between two totally different worlds of consciousness. And the cool part is we can actually see the signature of the state on a brain scan. Scientists have found these really specific electrical patterns, a big spike in high-frequency gamma waves in a part of the brain tied to self-awareness. At the same time, something changes in another region called the TPJ, which helps us build our sense of self. In fact, if you disrupt the TPJ when someone's awake, it can cause out-of-body experiences. So this proves it's not just a feeling, it is a measurable, physical shift in how the brain is working.
So if a dreamer is awake inside their own head, could you talk to them? For years, that was pure science fiction. Until, well, it wasn't.
Just picture this for a second. A research participant is fast asleep in a lab, all wired up to an EEG machine. The researchers are just watching his brainwaves, waiting for him to enter REM sleep, and, with any luck, become lucid. And then, they play a sound file into the room. It's a question, sent right across the barrier of sleep. And the question itself was just a simple math problem, but the implications, they were absolutely massive. They weren't just trying to nudge a dream from the outside. They were attempting a real-time, two-way conversation with someone lost in another world.
Now you have to remember, during REM sleep, your body is almost completely paralyzed. It's a natural safety feature to stop you from, running around and acting out your dreams. You can't speak, you can't move your arms or legs, but you can move your eyes. And the researchers had a prearranged signal. If the dreamer became lucid, they'd move their eyes left and right several times. And then, on the monitor, the signal came through. And it wasn't just the signal for being lucid. After they asked the question, a new signal appeared on the EEG. Two distinct, intentional left-right eye movements. The answer was 2. For the very first time, a correct answer to a question had been sent back from inside a dream.
As the lead researcher Ken Paller put it, this was proof, authentic communication. The wall between worlds had been breached, and this just opened up a whole new universe for studying the mind.
So, okay, communication is possible. That right there is a huge leap. But what comes next? What about actively shaping the content of a dream? What about engineering it to solve a specific problem?
This is where a technique called targeted memory reactivation, or TMR, comes into play. Here's the basic idea. First, you give people these difficult puzzles to solve, and you pair each puzzle with a unique sound. Then, as they go into REM sleep, the scientists play this sound for one of the puzzles they couldn't solve. The hope is that this sound cue will reactivate the memory, basically encouraging the brain to keep working on that specific problem while it's dreaming.
And the results were, well, they were stunning. You can see it in the data right here. The participants who got that sound cue in their sleep, they were twice as likely to solve the puzzle the next morning. Their success rate literally jumped from just 20% to an incredible 40%. That old advice to sleep on it? Turns out it's not just advice anymore. It's real, provable science.
All right, let's just pause right here for a second. We've established that we can talk to people in their dreams and even influence what they dream about. This stuff isn't theory anymore. It's actually happening. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. What does this mean for us? For ordinary people? And hey, by the way, if you're finding this topic as fascinating as I do, a quick like and subscribe would be amazing. It really helps the channel grow and lets us dive deep into more explainers just like this one.
On one hand, the promise is just immense, right? We could treat chronic nightmares, help people with PTSD reshape their traumatic memories. We could boost creativity, practice skills, find solutions to problems in our sleep. But for every potential paradise, there's a potential peril. The very act of taking control could mess with our sleep quality, blur the line between what's real and what's not, and maybe even lead to addiction, escapism, or emotional chaos.
And the research into people who frequently and deliberately induce lucid dreams, it paints a pretty cautious picture. It's been linked to poorer sleep, more stress, and even symptoms of dissociation, that really unsettling feeling of being detached from your own body or from reality. Some studies found that people who did this a lot had a harder time telling the difference between real memories and imagined ones. It kind of suggests that maybe there's a very good reason our logical brain shuts down when we sleep. It might be crucial for keeping us healthy.
And this really brings us to a fundamental trade-off. Is the power to rewrite a nightmare worth tampering with the basic functions of sleep, a biological process that's absolutely essential for our mental and physical health? We are really just beginning to even ask these questions.
But the questions, they get even bigger. We've been talking about what this means for an individual. What happens when this technology scales up for all of society?
Because once we can reliably engineer what people dream about, it won't just be individuals making a choice for themselves. The power to influence the sleeping mind will exist as a tool, and that forces us to ask a really heavy question. Who gets to wield that tool? I know, these might sound like they're straight out of a dystopian movie, but they are the logical next steps for this technology. If you can cue a memory of a puzzle, why couldn't you cue a memory of a brand logo? If you can shape a dream for therapy, couldn't someone else shape it for political influence? The dream world could become the next big frontier for advertising and propaganda. What we're witnessing here is the very beginning of a journey into one of the last truly private spaces of human experience. We aren't just mapping the mind anymore, we are learning how to become its architects. And the choices we make right now will define the future of that inner world for every single one of us. So, I've got to leave you with this question. If you could control your dreams tonight, what would you do first? Would you fly? Solve a huge problem? Revisit an old memory? Drop it in the comments below. And hey, while you're there, let me know what topic you want to see us break down next. Your idea might just spark the next explainer. Thanks for watching.